I think that it reveals about me that I'm not afraid to show my creativity, that I'm not going to fall into, I've said it a bunch already, I'm not going to fall into those stereotypes that a woman with tattoos is unladylike, or that a woman has to be ladylike.
People with tattoos are often stereotyped because of the design or location of their tattoos. Women who get tattoos do not just get tattoos for the sake of getting a tattoo. There are often real meanings behind the ink.
On my wrist, I have a heart that my best friend and I each have one, and hers I drew onto her, and hers she drew onto me. So it's kind of like leaving a mark on each other.
I started getting tattooed straight out of the gate when I was 18, and I chose to get a very obvious in-your-face area, which was my chest. So, so wearing, shirts that showed it off, obviously it was in your face. And there were a couple times where, I believe older generation, or people from the older generation, looked at me a little differently. They would always ask me why did I get it? What did it mean, and why did I choose to get it there? Never really bothered me so much until they, started commenting on myself being a woman and why am I getting such a revealing tattoo. And I always tell them it's my body. I make the decisions that I make based on things that I like, and I chose that spot for a reason. And it really doesn't bother me what people think about my tattoos.
On my left arm, I have a partial sleeve. It's almost done. I have one side of it done now. It's a totem pole of these beautiful portraits of African American women. The first one I got was Angela Davis, who actually got to see that tattoo on me, which I was so embarrassed and so nervous about. That's not even a word. Nervous about. I got to meet her at a lecture. I had a friend who went to Columbia College. She snuck me into a lecture, and it was like the most humbling experience ever because I idolize her. And it's not like a weird obsession thing. I just think that she is one of the most important prolific women in modern African American history. And, it's unfortunate to me because more often than not, I have African American people ask me who that woman is that's tattooed on me. They don't even know who she is. And I'm like, what? Like, she's one of the most intelligent and important living African American female legends to date, And underneath her, I have a portrait of Josephine Baker, who is my idol because I am also a burlesque dancer, which is one of the exotic dance art forms, I suppose, if you will. And she just really inspires me as a dancer and as a performer. And then underneath Josephine Baker, one of my most recent tattoos is another portrait. It's of Billie Holiday, and she's just, her voice is like my saving grace. Her music, the tragedy of her life, just everything about her. It's these three women combined with hopes of getting a few more tattooed on that same arm. It has to be one of my favorite pieces on my body.
The art of tattooing your body has become more popular in recent years. It has gained such popularity that people of all genders and ethnic groups are getting them. Recent studies have shown that at least 20% of all Americans are getting tattoos. Although these numbers have increased, women with tattoos still receive negative responses from people in the society.
I think it's kind of just like stereotypical, like when back in the 90s, when everybody was getting tramp stamps, the tattoos on the lower back, everybody thought that was scandalous, oh, she's got a lower tramp stamp tattoo. So, I mean, I think it just kind of, people get stereotyped by what they get, I guess you could say.
It indicates that there's some sort of stereotype on a woman for having a lower back tattoo, that she's a tramp if she does so. And I know I had actually a teacher in high school who had a lower back tattoo, and it was discovered, one day when she got something out of a lower filing cabinet. and she got a bad reputation at the school simply for having a, quote, tramp stamp because of that. It's a poor stereotype to put on women.
Well, definitely my lower back tattoo. They say that I have the tramp stamp, but I disagree with that because I'm not a tramp, and I think that there's some misconception with the lower back tattoos, just because it was a term used back in the day. It was a term that was used for hussies that would have a piece of artwork to stare at when, anyway. But I do get judged on it, and I don't care what other people think because I know that I'm not a tramp, and it's only visible with my bathing suit. I don't wear belly-bearing shirts or whatnot, so it's hidden to me.
Lately, it seems like in the past year, I've done a lot. I mean, if I could look through the books, I'd say 70% are female.
I would say tattoos on women in general shouldn't be looked at as a negative thing because it's sometimes a way for us to express our feelings, ways for us to let a person know who we are and what we're about, and not to look at us as if we are not just a normal person on the street, and to accept us for who we are, meaning that we can have a higher education, we can become the doctor, the lawyer, things like that, instead of just being categorized as a person who works at a club, a bartender, a biker girl, things like that.
Back in the day, women were viewed differently, especially, having tattoos. But I think now it's more of a common thing to see women with tattoos, and don't get me wrong, there's a lot of guys that probably think that women shouldn't have tattoos because of the body as a temple and whatnot, but it's your own body. You do what you want to do with it. Just like we were talking earlier with ear piercings, hair dye. I mean, it's 2012. Things are different.
I think they are, just because the veil of women being ladylike and being dainty has been lifted. It's for some time, and I think that women are less afraid of getting tattoos. I think that there are still those who are convinced that either their family will be too upset or that it's not right or it's ugly, but that's their opinion and that's their life. But I do think that just because women have become more free-spirited and more open to the idea of getting tattoos, that there's been a rise in women getting tattoos. Well, I'd say for the most part, I've known guys to come up and compliment me on my tattoos, or, well, specifically my lightning bolt, because it's so not really different, but it raises a lot of questions. People want to know what it's about, what it means. My treble clef, if you're a musician, it could be man or woman, but who comes up and asks about it. But for the most part, just, I haven't had anybody say they didn't like it or that it was bad. I guess if we're talking about my family, my uncles never liked my tattoos, and they didn't. They were vocal about it.
Some of the responses that I get from the opposite sex are kind of disrespectful responses. Not as in mean ways, but as in, instead of, hi, how are you doing, trying to get to know a person, the first thing they know is my tattoo. So just by my tattoos being on a certain part of my body, take this for example, my tattoo on my chest, draw more men their attention to my breasts. So you really don't know if they're trying to get to know you for who you are or for how you look.
It's a generation thing, I guess you could say. I mean, my grandparents don't like my I mean, they love what I do, and they're very proud of me, but every time I show up, I got a new tattoo, and they're just like, "What are you doing to yourself?" You know. So the generations, we're a whole new generation of artists. You know, I mean, it's past 10 years has definitely changed. You know, the way everybody looks and feels about it. You know, 50 years from now, everybody's gonna be, when they're old, wrinkled up men, everybody's gonna be covered in tattoos. You know what I mean? So I think it's more of just a culture generation type swing.
I wear 3/4 length sleeves so that nobody can see my arm. But at the end of the day, I feel that this is my own body and I shouldn't have to work around the things that I want for myself because of stereotypes that were put on me by society.